And next, it helps, that means React.js helps in building UI components that can manage their own state and can be composed into complex UIs. Okay. So again, here what we need to discuss, what is the meaning of this. So building UI components that can manage their own state. What is UI components? What is state? We need to. Then after that, we need to understand what is this complex UI. So that also we need to understand. So here we need to discuss UI components that manage their own state. Here we need to understand what is UI component. First of all, what is component? What is UI component? And next, what is state? That we need to discuss. Okay. So after that, okay, so we need to discuss about components composed into complex UIs. So even we need to know about this. So once if you understand UI components that manage their own state, next thing is what? Component composed into complex UIs. So then this definition is going to come. So if anyone asks what is React means, you need to answer everything. React is a JavaScript library developed by Facebook for building fast and interactive user interfaces, primarily for single page application. Up to now, we discussed. After that, we need to explain it helps in building UI components that can manage their own state and can be composed into complex UI. Here we need to understand what is component, what is UI components, and what is state. And after that, what is this components composed into complex UIs. So it will take some time. Here also we'll be having one or two programs for better understanding purpose. Okay. UI components that manage their own state. So here, two new words we are seeing here. One is component, another one is state. Okay. So what exactly the meaning of this component? First, general explanation. Okay. So let's say we are having some SPA, right? So SPA application, right? So just I'm going to run that application again. Okay. So in this application, we are having separately header part, separately menu bar part, separately banner part, separately content part, and separately footer. So in React.js, each and every part we are calling as what? One component. So just a general explanation. Okay. So believe that this header is one component. This menu bar is one component. This banner is one component. This content is one component. And even this footer is one component. Is it clear? Okay. So whatever it may be the web page, definitely each and every web page or website, okay, application, whatever, okay, it is going to collect or connect with number of components. Is it clear? So collection of components, simply we can say like, okay. So I will add a proper definition here, theory part. So in React, a component is a reusable, self-contained piece of the user interface. Okay, so right now, okay, so what is a simple sentence or definition I wrote here? A component is a reusable, self-contained. So for example, see here, by seeing this, let's say we are in home page, right? So whenever we are in the home page, okay, only this content is going to update. About means only this content is going to update. Is it clear, right? But in case of home, in case of about, we are having some reusable components, especially header, menu bar, banner, and footer. Okay. So let's say right now we are in home page. Right now we are in home page, and here believe that we are in the about page. Okay. So right now we are in two pages, but some reusable components are there. So what is one of the reusable component here? Header. Okay, only one time we wrote some header component, but it looks like in home also same header component is there. In about also the same header component is there. Is it clear? Right? Okay, only one time only we are going to write all those components. Okay, these components are reusable. Okay, so it is the building block of any React application. So not only in case of React, even in Angular also the same thing. So there also component, here also component. So this is the main concept, main topic in our React, main building block. So components, let us split the UI into independent, reusable parts and think about each part in isolation. So isolation means separately it will go, separately we will be having those UI components. So that is responsible part of the UI and managing its own state. Okay. Right now, don't bother about this. As usual, so components, let us split the UI into independent and reusable parts. All these components are what? In isolation. Isolation means separately. Okay. So again, as usual, this is my whole UI, whole user interface. So you can see all the independent UI components, header, menu, banner, even this one also independent UI component, but we are updating with some content. Okay, so we are having a complete UI. In that UI is going to form with the help of independent components. Is it clear? Okay. So in this context of React, rendering, so this is the most frequently used word. Rendering refers to the process of converting the React components JSX code into the actual HTML elements that can be displayed in the web browser. So observe carefully. Okay. So first we understood what is component, right? So now we need to understand about, okay, especially what is the meaning of this rendering. Okay. Rendering refers to the process of converting React components JSX code into actual HTML elements. So first of all, what is JSX? So JSX stands for JavaScript and XML. So this is simple abbreviation. So JSX stands for JavaScript XML. Okay. So if you check this React.js application, especially this JS file, see, we are not having any HTML files here. So we are having app.js. In this JS file only, we are writing what? Our regular HTML tags. Is it clear? Okay. So in JS file, we are writing what here? Our regular HTML tags. Okay, fine. So that means JSX provides that comfort. Okay, JSX provides that comfort writing something similar to our HTML. Okay, so generally, okay, if you want to create any elements with the help of a pure JavaScript, for example, okay. So generally, so if you want to create any HTML element with the help of JavaScript, so how we need to create? So observe carefully. I am writing some code, constant element. So create element. So in JavaScript, I explained document.create element. Okay. So in DOM, we are having document.getElement by ID, document dot what else? Okay, get elements by class name, get elements by tag name, and even document.create element, document.create text node, something like that. Right. So in JavaScript, if you want to create any element, we will write document dot something. In React.js, actually we need to write React.create. So whatever it may be. So finally, this is the way we need to create elements with the help of pure JavaScript. Pure JavaScript. Okay. Let's say I want HTML tag. So inside this H1, so here now I'm adding some null. Later I will add in the place of null, and we are going to have some. So generally, with the help of pure JavaScript, so this is the way we need to write HTML elements. But in our JS file, we did not write like this. So however, we are writing our regular HTML, right? The same like that only we wrote. But actually, this is the actual syntax. Okay. So this results in generating what? Our HTML hello world. Okay. That means H1 hello. So I think you got some clarification. So in pure JavaScript, this is the way we need to write. But in HTML, this is the way we are going. Okay. So now coming to this particular null. So what we are going to write there. So in general, in the place of null, so better to write in the new line. So here in the place of null, so whenever we are adding this null part, we need to add curly braces. And here, let's say if you want to add any CSS class name, this is the way we need to add. So if you want to add any ID, this is the way. Suppose if you want to write any event. So I am writing some arrow functions in ECMI script. You know about this. Okay. So finally, in pure JavaScript, this is the way we are going to write HTML elements. Even if you want to add any classes, IDs, even JavaScript events, whatever. So this is the way we need to do. But JSX is going to provide that comfort. However, we are writing in our HTML, same like that we can. So how we can write means constant element equal to H1 open, H1 close, and inside we are going to have hello. It is something similar to our regular HTML. So now again come back here. So what is the meaning of rendering? Rendering refers the process of converting React component JSX code into actual HTML elements. Of course, so this is our regular JSX only. Okay, but browser will understand regular HTML format. Of course, both are looking same. JSX as well as our HTML both are looking same. But the meaning of or definition of rendering is what? It is going to help us in converting this JavaScript code into our regular HTML. Then we can see the output in our browser. Okay. So this word is very, very important. So rendering is something like what? Just whatever the output that we are seeing in our browser, but actually the process of converting components JSX code into actual HTML elements to display in our browser. Okay. So I will add another point here. So initial render. So this happens when the React component is first loaded onto the page. React translates the components. Components means right now header is one component. Okay, footer is one component, menu is one component, something like that. Okay, so first loaded onto the React, sorry, it's first loaded onto the page. React translates components JSX into real HTML and inserts it into the browser's DOM. So DOM is nothing but our regular. See, in JavaScript, you know about DOM. DOM means document object model, nothing but our HTML file only. Instead of writing HTML, I wrote a professional word called document object model. Okay, fine. So here, let's say in case of JavaScript, sorry, in case of React JSX, so this is the way we are going to write function. Inside, we are going to have some H1. So this is our JSX code. And finally, the welcome component renders. So very, very important terminology. Frequently, I am going to use. Rendering means the process of converting JavaScript XML, JSX code to HTML, and that elements are going to display in our browser. So you need to by hand this definition, especially freshers. Okay. So the welcome component renders the JSX something like this. So see here, like an overview. Generally in pure JavaScript, if you want to create any HTML elements, this is the way we need to create. But JSX provides a comfort like however we are writing HTML elements in our regular HTML, same like that we can write. But still it is JSX only. But JSX provides that comfort. Then rendering means this type of code is going to convert into our regular HTML and it is going to execute in our browser. Okay, fine. So next, whatever I told about JSX generally, I am adding one point here. So JavaScript XML is a syntax extension for JavaScript used in React. It allows us to write HTML-like code. So this is the main point. Okay. So this is also another interview question, especially for freshers. Okay. This JSX is going to allow us to write HTML code. Okay. Within JavaScript. So directly we can't write okay HTML tags in our JavaScript file, right? Even whenever I discussed pure JavaScript, so how I said we need to write document.write inside the quotations. If you want, you can write. At least we need something, right? Okay, so something like this. Now, what is happening here? That JSX, okay, is going to allow us to write something similar to HTML in our JavaScript. In our JavaScript. So making it easier to describe the structure and layout of UI. So right now UI components means individually header component, footer component, menu component, something. Is it clear? Okay. For example, so instead of using traditional JavaScript, React.createElement calls, and we can use JSX like this. Okay. So instead of using traditional JavaScript, see, this is our traditional JavaScript. Instead of using like this, we can write like this. Okay, fine. So even, so coming to these events, see class name, ID name. Okay, I think already I wrote something similar to this on click also, where I wrote in this app.jsc. However, we are writing. Suppose if you want to add any class name, so here we can add that class. Is it clear? But we need to remember that you need to add capital N. We need to add capital N. ID, no problem. ID directly we can add like this. Regarding ID, no issues. But regarding class name or regarding classes, you need to write class name. See, in CSS, we are going to write like this. Okay, in CSS, we are going to write like this. But in React, you need to write like this. Is it clear? Okay, fine. So whatever, you got some clarification about components, JSX, and what is rendering. Rendering mode is very important. Okay. So next, we need to understand about state. Components we understood. Now state. Okay. So for your understandable purpose, simply in JavaScript, we are having variables, right? Okay. So where x equal to 10, where x equal to 10, right? So in JavaScript, we are calling this one as what? Variable. In JavaScript, we are calling this one as what? Variable. Just like a comparison, okay, between JavaScript and React state, okay? In React, we are calling as what? State. So you got the clarification, right? Okay. In JavaScript, we are calling as variable. In case of React.js, we are calling as what? State. Okay. Nothing is there. Some data. Some data we are storing in, okay, state. In future, if you want to change the state, you can change. Okay. Let's say x equal to 10. So right now my state is 10. Now I'm going to change that 10 to shape. Okay. In case of React.js, state is something like what? Data. State is something like what? Data. Okay. Initially, we'll be having one state value 10. In future, if you want, you can change, right? Same concept. So this is also very, very important terminology. Okay. State refers to the data. See, this is our data. So right now my data is 10. Here my data is what? Shiva. Even some JavaScript object notation, JSON data, some object data, whatever. Okay. So state refers to the data that a component can hold. Okay. State refers to the data that a component can hold. Okay. So based on this, I will going to explain with some example. Then you will be having a better understanding. Okay. So whatever it may be right now, just a data. This data, assume that let's say I'm having separately header component, for example. In that header component, let's say I'm having some variable, some state. Is it clear? Okay. So that is the meaning of this point. State refers to the data that a component can hold. Let's say in our header component, let's say one state is there, x equal to 10, something like that. Okay. So which can be or which can change over time. Okay. If you want, you can change the state. So generally I explained here, initially my value is 10. If I want, I can change it later, right? Something like that, which can change over time. And React components can manage this state internally. Let's say I am having one header component. In that component, I am having some state like this. So it refers to that component only, right? So that is the meaning of this. Okay, React components can manage the state internally. In header component, internally, this state is going to be managed. Managed in the sense initially x equal to empty or 10 or something. So in future, they are going to manage to do some changes, some updates, something like that. So an update themselves when the state changes. Okay, so whatever it may be, state is something similar to our variable in our JavaScript. Okay, right now, whatever the definitions are relevant to this JSX, even component, even state, whatever the definitions that I'm typing here, this is just for the sake of initial knowledge, at least, okay, to understand, okay, something about this. But whenever we start actual subject from Monday onwards, there our definitions, everything will be something relevant to our React itself. Here I am comparing with JavaScript, something like that, right? But there, okay, in future we'll be having actual and original definitions, okay, when while comparing with our React itself. Oh, sorry, based on React itself. Okay, this is something like for the sake of understanding. Okay, fine. So whatever it may be. So finally see here x equal to 10 and x equal to Shiva. This is our JavaScript state, nothing but variable. But how we are going to write state in our React.js means. So don't bother about, okay, this constant, okay, constant let already I explained in our ECMS script. So please refer or watch those videos. Okay, let's say count. Count equal to, initially my count is what? 0. This is the way we need to. Let's say x equal to 0. X equal to 0. Right. Okay. Instead of x, just compare. So where count equal to 0. So here I want to change that. Just I'm compare. Okay, this is not actual syntax, just I'm compare. Okay, so initially count is 0. In future, if I want to change this count, in future, if I want to change this count, okay, I'm going to use this set count to 20. Finally, my count is going to become 20. Okay, just I'm comparing. The purpose of this one is storing some value, assigning some value, count equal to what? 0. With the help of this one, if you want to do any changes or any updates, we are going to use this set count. Okay, fine. So now to explain this particular state example, state-based example, I need to create one React application. I am creating that. So whatever, don't bother about this program, project creation and everything, just for the sake of knowledge. So npx create hyphen react hyphen app state application. This is my project name. Whatever the name you want, you can. So how to install Node.js, how to create React.js projects, what is the flow of execution. Okay, some predefined code will be there. Okay, so and also how it is executing, that also we need to know, because HTML is very important, right? Without HTML, we can't see anything in our browser. Actually, in our public directory, generally we'll have the main HTML. Okay, so dynamically it is going to update here. So how it is updating everything. So we'll be having a main file called index. So based on this syntax, we are loading that app data. App data means whatever is available in app.js, everything we'll discuss. If you are going to understand, happy. If you're feeling any difficulty, feel free to ask. Even if you're not going to understand 100%, at least 50% if you understand also, no problem. Okay. So whenever you're watching these videos, no need to practice these programs creating, no need to do all those stuff. These are all just for your reference. Okay. Fine. So finally we created, okay, so state application. So here, let's say I am having src. This is our main file actually, app.js. Whatever the code changes, everything we need to do in this JS file. Okay. So import this example relevant to state as well as our component. So now after importing, I am having my component. What is my component name here? Earlier, what I said, header component, footer component, something like that I said, right? Let's say this is my header component. I am going to add function header, function about, something like that. Now my component is what? Counter component. Okay. So in this counter component, so I am going to have what? A state, something similar to our variables in our JavaScript. But in case of JavaScript, x equal to 10 or count equal to 0. But here, additionally, we need to add what? Set count also. So I'll add one point here. State, see, count. Count holds the current count value. Okay. That means in count, we are having 0. Let's say I'm giving here 5. Now count is holding 5. Now count is holding 5. Okay. Initially, my count is 5. So what is the use of this set count? Name itself is there. Okay. Set capital C count. Let's say I am having Ajay, for example. This set should be like this. Capital A. Okay. Ajay. Set Ajay. Whatever set count is going to help us to update. Set count is used to update the value, initial value. Okay, initially it's 0. In future, if you want to change to 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, I'm going to use this set. So that's the reason they provided totally 2. Okay, count and set. But in regular JavaScript, what we are going to do, simply we will have something like count equal to 0. If you want to replace, simply we will add like this. Is it clear? Okay, this is just like a comparison, something. Okay, so state refers to the data in the component, data that a component can hold, right? So now what is my component here? Counter component. Here I am having some state. It is holding count equal to G. So this is my individual component. In this individual component, actually the file extension is JSX, but still we are writing directly something similar to our HTML tags. Okay, so JSX is going to provide this comfort. Okay. However, we are having traditional HTML, same like that we. Okay, even here also. So here I am going to add some button. On click. So generally in JavaScript, on click equal to, this is the way we need to call the function, right? But here we need to write curly braces. This is the place, if you want, you can add any argument. This is our arrow function. These arrow functions I covered in ECMA script. Please watch those videos. So just now only I said that count is just a value. Okay, but set count is going to help us to update the value. So now after clicking on this button, what I'm trying to do here is initially my count is 0. I want to increment by 1. 0 plus 1. 0 plus 1 means 1. Then after that, again, if you click 1 plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like that, it is going to increase the count. Okay, so finally, I am having some button. So then afterwards, we need to export this counter at last. So separately, I am having a component. That component finally we need to export. Okay. So now what we need to do, this component counter. See, this is our actual main file. This is our actual main file. Okay. I'll do one thing. Actually, here we need to do the update. Okay. But till now, I did not discuss anything about that, right? Instead of calling as counter, I'm going to call as app only, because this is our main file where we need to write all our code, but this is the file is going to help us, okay, to display this data or whatever, to display this particular file into our HTML. Okay, so this syntax is going to help us especially. That's the reason already there we are having some name, right? So go with that same. So finally what happens here, we are trying to understand, okay, this is our component. In this component internally, we are having count. So this count, we are updating by clicking on this button. So check the output. So we need to target that project state app, then npm start. This command is going to help us to start the live server, development server, and it is going to load, okay, directly in our browser. Okay, so now see here. Okay, so initially my state count is 0. My state count is 0. I am updating with the help of set. Okay, so here initially 0. But after clicking on this button, okay, with the help of this set count, we are updating this count value. That's the reason it is up. I'll do one thing, keep it counter on. Okay, at least you will get some idea how to, suppose if the name is different, how. So go to index.js. So file name as usual. No need to write any extension. Okay, in this index.js, some path is there. File name, no need to change. But this one, right? Here, counter, capital C. So the meaning of this one is from app.js, we are importing what? Counter component, nothing but counter function. And this we need to update in some place. Later we'll show about it. So no change in the output. Okay, fine. So now see the explanation part. So this is my actual code. So now see the explanation part here. So the counter component has a piece of state called count. Okay, again I'm repeating, count is something similar to our variable. In JavaScript variable, here we are calling as state, that's it. Okay, so the counter component has a piece of state called count, which starts with 0. Okay, so initially my count equal to 0. My count is 0. So next, each time the button is clicked. So whenever we click on this button, okay, each time. So whenever we are clicking this particular button, each time the set count. So already I mentioned count is just to hold the value. Okay, but in future, if you want to do any changes or any updations, we are going to use this set count. That's the reason only here set count, but we are updating count. So the set count function updates the state by increasing count by 1. Because see, for the first time, okay, my count value is 0. For the first time, count value is 0. Okay. So based on this, what happens? Count plus 1. 0 plus 1. So now what happens? My overall count is again count plus 1. So based on this, my count became 1. So that's the reason 1 plus 1, 2. Then again, if you click count equal to 2, then count plus 1, 2 plus 1, 3. So this is the way it is going to cut. How many times you are going to? Okay. So the component, observe carefully. This is the main point. We are using a word called re-renders. Okay. See, whenever we are refreshing the page or loading this application for the first time, okay, first time, that is called rendering. So let's say localhost colon 3000 something is loaded after npm start. So by default in browser it is going to open like this. Okay, for the first time whenever it is loading, that is called rendering. Whenever it is updating, okay, that is called re-rendering. That is called re-rendering. Here also what we are having single page application of. Here also we are updating only this part. We are updating only that particular part without refreshing the page. Okay. So this is something like, this is also something like what? Single page application. So re-rendering is something like what? Okay. The component re-renders updates the displayed count every time the state changes. So whenever is there any changes or any updates in the state every time, sorry, re-renders and updates the displayed count every time the state changes. So whenever the state is changing 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, so then what happens? The component is going to re-render. Okay, re-rendering means loading and again, something like that. Whenever any changes is there in our state. This shows how React allows UI components to manage their own state. Right now, this count state belongs to which component? Counter component. Okay, it belongs to counter component. And update themselves automatically without needing nothing but single page application. Okay, to reload the entire page. Only that updated part only is going. Okay, fine. So now coming to re-rendering, a definition. So this occurs when the components, right now counter components, okay, component states or props change. Okay, right now don't bother about these props. Props means properties. Again, whenever situation comes, we'll cover. Okay, so right now don't bother about this terminology. Okay, so component states or props change. React recalculates what the UI should look like and only updates the necessary part. Right now, only it is updating this part only, this necessary part. Okay, not everything. So necessary parts of the DOM. DOM means our regular HTML structure. Okay, not the entire. Okay, fine. So whatever, everything is fine. You are able to understand, right? Okay. So here, what is the heading here? UI components that manage their own state. This is my counter UI component. It is managing this counter component state called count. Okay. Next. So what is the next point we are added here? The next point is what? it can be composed into complex UI. So what is the meaning of complex UI? Okay. So composition in React means that we can combine smaller components into a larger components or larger or more complex UI. So I think you got the clarification. Okay. Complex UI means what? So composition in React means we can combine smaller components, let's say header component, footer component, whatever, or small components, for example. Okay, very less code, something like that. So smaller components into larger, more complex UI. So instead of having a single large component, we can break our UI into small, independent, reusable components. Okay, already we know about this point. Okay, see, coming to SIVASOFT application again. So in SIVASOFT application is not based on React.js. That's the reason. So common components are not reused here. So just blindly I am writing in each and every place. Let's say in home, check it. So if you see some code in home, you are able to see all the header part, menu bar part, logo part, everything, even banner part. Okay. Now go to classroom. That is the reason only. So whenever we are moving from one page to another page, you can see some flickering or it is taking some time to load and changing some URL, whatever. Okay, see in each and every page that header, okay, and this what is that menu bar, banner, everything, each and every page I wrote. But here, what we are going to do? So instead of having a single large component, that means instead of, for example, I think we already have one example based on this. Okay, in SPA only, in app.js, what I did here only I wrote the components. See, this is my single large file which includes home component and about component. And these two components we are loading again where? Okay, in app component because this is our main component. So instead of writing like this, create a separate file called home.js. In that home.js, write this. Create separate file called about.js here and write this something like that. So that is the instead of having all the components in a single file, just break our UI into small, independent, and reusable components. Right separately. That is the meaning actually. Okay. So the component or these components can be nested or combined to build more complex user interfaces. Okay, so whatever it may be, so I think you got some clarification about what is the meaning of components composed into complex UI. Okay, as usual. So here I am going to have one simple basic application again. Control C. So we need to target React.js directory. Then we need to run the command. Okay, cd two dots. Cd two dots means one directory back. See, now we are in React.js main folder, parent folder. Now run the. So whenever we are using up arrow, down arrow, you can see the previous. Okay. Okay, so now see here. Here I am going to create separately home.js. See in SPA, whatever the application, I wrote everything in one place. Now I'm splitting, that's it. So here it's complex UI. Okay. So whatever in home.js, okay. At last here we need to write export default home. This is my home, copy paste. This is my about. As usual, we need to export, and these two we need to import in this app.js. Okay. So go to this SPA. We wrote separately those components. In this app.js, we need to import those. Okay, same thing here. Whenever you type that home component, it will show like this, click, it will import. So import from which file? Home.js file, home. Okay, here also. So successfully imported, no change in the anything, no change in our output. Just we split it, that's it. NPM, sorry, we need to target compost, then NPM start. Okay, any problem?
At about page, you didn't change the text.
Hmm?
About page, you didn't change the text. Same text you used there.
Thank you. Okay, so it's working. So I think you got clarification about this point also. So what is that? Components composed into complex UIs. Okay, we are going to break our UI into small independent reusable components. So this is something like what? Reusable components. What are those? Home, okay, as well as about. These two are reusable components I am using in this particular app.js. Okay, so finally we fulfilled our definition. So this is the actual definition. Okay, just you need to by heart, that's it. So next, as usual, okay, so many technologies we are having, then why this React JS? Even compare with Angular also, okay. So why React? So React is something like what? Declarative. That means React allows us to describe how the UI should look at any point in time, again as usual, and updates automatically. Nothing but single page application. Okay. Whenever you see a word called something like this, updates automatically, when the underlying data changes. So I showed count example, right? So that one. Okay. So even this one also, but it's just a normal text. Okay. So single page application. Okay. Next, as usual, component based. So right now, so I am having two components, home component and about component. For this home and about, this app is the parent component because in this app we are using both home and about. Okay. So component based. So we build encapsulated. So encapsulated means each component is self-contained and independent, meaning it manages its own behavior, state as usual without affecting other parts. Only that specific area only is going to update. So for this point, that count example you can consider. Okay, parts of the application. Okay, fine. Whatever. So we build encapsulated components that manage their own state and then compose them to make complex UIs. Okay, fine. And next, fine. So learn once, write anyway. So that means React can be used for web applications. Right now, our course is mainly focused on web applications only. Okay, but even we can develop mobile applications also. But for that, we need to learn React Native. Okay, so right now, whatever the course you join for web applications. Okay, fine. So React Native and even we can create some desktop applications also. Okay, in desktop applications also this React plays a major role. Desktop applications means, for example, see right now this is my Visual Studio Code, right? So to develop these type of Visual Studio code also we can use this React. Even Slack. Okay, Slack is something like a chatting, something like what? However, we are having Microsoft Teams. Okay, audio call, video call. Even Slack also another. Okay, so most of the on-site team they are going to prefer this Slack. Okay, Slack, even Teams, whatever. So desktop-based applications also we can develop with the help of this. Okay, React. Even virtual reality. So mainly this one, artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence, AI, and machine learning interfaces. Even gaming application development, even IoT, what not everything. Okay, whatever we are seeing with the help of eyes on screens. Okay, laptops, desktops, TVs, whatever. Okay, all those places we will be using this React.js, augmented reality. And okay, fine. So that's it. Okay, relevant to this introduction part.